Hi, Amos here, and today I'd like to talk to you about the Pico Slim. In my last video I talked to you about the Pico Power, which was HeadAmp's solution for portable listening from IEMs up to full-sized headphones, but preceding the Pico Power was this little neat amp, which is aimed at people who want to use high-end, custom IEMs, or nowadays, high-end IEMs in general, such as your Shure SE846 and the like, such as these JH13s here. Now, why would you need an amp for these for a pair of custom IEMs? Well, custom IEMs have a number of issues which need to be addressed by a good amp. And the first of those is that they generally have multiple drivers in them. Now, multiple drivers present across the entire frequency range present an uneven impedance load to an amp. And nowadays isn't such a huge problem, but a lot of phones and the like, their headphone sockets don't have a low output impedance, and a lot of DAPs don't have a low output impedance. It can be 3, it can be 10 ohms, it can be 50 ohms, and that is absolutely no good with a pair of custom IEMs such as these JH13s, because what you'll end up getting is the frequency response will change considerably, and of course that means the sound will change considerably when you're using with a device with a high output impedance. So Justin came up with this neat little amp which has a very low output impedance, and also covers another particular issue, and that is with portable amps. Now, most portable amps such as this one use a regular volume pot, and depending on the amp, this uses a Pico Power uses a regular volume pot as well. Depending on the amp, unless it has a gain setting such as this, custom IEMs tend to be very sensitive, and that means you end up using them at close to the beginning of the volume travel. And these regular volume pots tend to have a lot of channel imbalance at the beginning of their travel. There are makers who will buy 10,000 pots and chuck out all the ones that have any channel imbalance at all, but that's chucking out a lot of volume pots. So you may have plugged in a pair of headphones to an amp, and then you just started to turn up the volume. You've heard one side come in before the other. But a lot of amps such as this one do not have any gain control at all. So that means you end up using them where you've got a lot of channel imbalance, and you don't want to have channel imbalance when you're listening. It just sounds awful. So in the Pico Slim, Justin uses a digital volume chip, and this is not actually a volume pot. It actually controls the level of volume through the chip. So that means you get 120 odd steps, all of which are completely in balance. When you actually plug a pair of sensitive IEMs in, the actual usable area of this amp is probably something like 12 to 3 o'clock, with 4 o'clock blowing your ears out. But it still gives you, maybe 40 to 60 steps of usable volume, more than enough to give you just the volume you want, and with no sound of changing the steps at all. Maybe if you have no music playing, you can very barely hear something, but playing music, it feels like a perfectly smooth volume control. Now, of course, the main feature of this amp is that it's very small. So if I pull it out of its case, it becomes readily apparent just how small the amp is. When it came out, the current iPhone at the time, I think it was the iPhone 4, iPhone 4S, and if I hold them up side by side, you get an idea of just how small we're talking about. That is the same thickness, if you can see clearly there. Both are the same thickness. But the Pico Slim itself is actually much smaller than the phone. Now, of course, it's small because it doesn't have a DAC inside. It is only an amp, nothing else. Nowadays, of course, the iPhone 5 and 5S is slightly thinner even still, so it's a tiny bit thicker, but we're talking about a really, really small amp. Compare that to the huge amps and rigs that people take with them nowadays as portable rigs, and this is just tiny and neat, and it's designed intentionally to be used with a phone, such as an iPhone, as a portable solution with custom IEMs. So even if I put it back in its case, it's still really, really a lot smaller than the Pico Power, or even just a regular portable amp like this. It's still vastly smaller. So probably a good example is if I take this line-out dock, which was, or this Mini to Mini, which was designed for a larger portable rig, which you can see in some of my Head5 photos. If I plug it in the back, even with a case, it's got a case with a perfect cutout for it. It's literally this OIED plug is the same thickness as the Pico Slim itself, and there it fits snugly on the top there. So when you, assuming you have one with a shorter cable which fits better, if I kind of attach it here, unravel it and attach it. If I had one the right size, it essentially sits nice and flush with the phone, making for a much more compact rig than a lot of people do carry. Much more realistic to use with a pair of custom IEMs. And of course, if I hold it up to a Pico Power, it's about, the whole rig ends up being about the thickness of a Pico Power, or even less, actually, to be honest. Very compact rig. And of course, the Pico Power has to be used with some kind of source, so there you go. Easily shirt pocketable. Now, if you use something like, I had an AK100 before, that's probably a more useful matchup. The original AK100 had a 10, I think it was a 10 ohm output impedance, and that would be a really good match with the Pico Slim with a pair of custom IEMs, because it would be very compact rig and very easy to put a set of rubber bands around to hold it all together. Of course, the AK100 Mark II has a 3 ohm output impedance, but still I believe this has something like an 0.1 output impedance, which is even better for custom IEMs, though whether you notice much of a difference depending on the source is questionable. Probably the more useful thing to be noticeable is that you'll have no channel imbalance and perfect volume control with your highly sensitive IEMs. And speaking of that, there are two more things to consider with this device. First is that the input is on the back. If I just turn it around here, you can see clearly the input's on the back. And that is a micro USB port, which is only used for charging. So there's no DAC inside, it's just used for charging. But being a micro USB port, you can charge it with any micro USB cable off a computer or iPhone, a charger, iPad charger, anything like that which has USB. Very handy in that. And then standard 3.5mm 1/8 input and standard phone's output. One little downside to this is when you do turn it on, there is a pop in your headphones because there is no kind of safety circuit in that. Although I don't think there's one necessary. It's not going to damage your IEMs, but if you are worried about that, turn it on, then plug your IEMs in. But it does give you a bit of a pop in your ears, which can be a bit startling. But overall, it is, as far as I know, the thinnest, or almost the thinnest, given that a few amps have come out which are quite thin since then, thinnest or close to the thinnest amp available for custom IEMs and the like. Now, sound. HeadAmp's house sound, along with the Pico Power and Pico, is of dead neutral, no harshness. That's it. So if you're looking for a bit of a euphoric sound with a bit of a bass boost or anything like that, the Pico Slim is not the go for you. It focuses entirely on being absolutely dead neutral without harshness. In measurements, it measures very well. If you go to innerfidelity.com, Tile Hertzens has measured it, which is good news. It has a slight bit more noise due to the digital volume chip than a Pico Power. But that is more than offset by any noise you're going to get through your source, or the fact that you have a perfectly balanced volume compared to other amps. It is not an issue. So that is the Pico Slim, and I hope you like my video, and if you have any questions, please ask in the comments and I'll put some high-res pictures on at the end of this video. Thank you very much.